Welcome back, everybody, to this special edition of the Sports File, a 35-year reboot. On today's episode, I'm going to be originating from Scituate, Massachusetts, the town that I grew up in. And this is where the Sports File originated from back in 1988 through 1989. So today's topics will be very focused on Massachusetts sports in honor of that. We'll be talking about the Boston Celtics, how they've won the Eastern Conference Championship. We'll be talking a little bit about the Boston Red Sox. We'll be talking about the New England Patriots and their plan forward. And then we'll do a walkthrough of Scituate, Massachusetts and what the town has to offer. Topic number one, the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics successfully swept the Indiana Pacers 4-0 to earn a trip back to the NBA championship that will be taking place more than likely versus the Dallas Mavericks, who are currently leading in their series versus the Timberwolves 3-1. Boston Celtics, pretty dominating performance within this Eastern Conference Championship. The first game they almost gave away. They were favored by 10.5. That ended up going into overtime, and Indiana totally really did choke at the end, I think, to really give the game over to the Celtics. Celtics continued to perform the remaining games, kept them, I think, a little bit closer than I think what Las Vegas thought they should be doing it. But in the end, the Boston Celtics successfully defeated the Pacers and swept them and closed out the series 4-0. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown led the final game. Brown shot 29 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Jason Tatum, 26 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists. Got great contribution from guys like Derek White, who contributed 16 points, Drew Holiday, 17 points. The only hesitation, if you were to step back and think about the Celtics, I think this is, we've talked about this at least on the last few episodes here, leading up to the end of the season and into the playoffs, my thoughts on the Celtics. Celtics, clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference. They have been for the last couple of years, right? They are a frustrating team to watch, and I only say this because of Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum is an amazing talent. You could argue he's a top 10 player in the league. The Celtics he is their clear number one in their eyes. But there are times where Jason Tatum is incredibly frustrating to watch. There almost feels like there's stretches of a game where he sort of just disappears, and it can go on for most of a quarter, for example. He'll go 7-8 minutes where he's just either taking really bad shots or he's just non-existent, really, really passive. He needs to be much more of the alpha, I think, and when he is, the Celtics are really, really tough. Jaylen Brown is just a phenomenal number 2, and I think Derek White and Drew Holiday have been great to round out their 4, and Al Horford, older now in the league, great center for them, kind of an old school type center in his role that he plays for them. Celtics more than likely will be playing the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas is currently leading that series 3-1. Tough game to match up. I think, the Western Conference has just been so dominant this year. We've gone through the various teams. I mean, if you really look at, obviously the Nuggets that we've talked about a lot. Nuggets went out probably too early in my eyes, especially it's not a great look now knowing that the Nuggets lost to the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves were on the verge of getting swept and are more than likely going to lose this series to Dallas. Dallas stacked. Phoenix is always tough there. The Lakers are always tough. Golden State kind of is in the mix now. OKC Thunder. West is really, really stacked with talent. And so I was listening to Colin Cowherd today a little bit, and his thought was Celtics should be favored in the upcoming series versus the Mavericks. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're going to run into an issue, especially with the way Kyrie Irving has been playing and Luka, who's, I think, clearly the best player remaining out there. Luka, you'd probably put up, definitely ahead of Jason Tatum. They are a tough out, Dallas. And I think Dallas this year just feels like They kind of are clicking. Kyrie has been sort of reborn in these playoffs. He's just been playing fantastic. Luca just does what Luca does all the time, just reliable, casually. It feels like he's just casually dropping 30 points a night, 30 plus points a night. So we'll see. It should be a pretty entertaining series, I think, coming up here. I feel like Dallas wins this one. I feel like it's going at least 6 to 7 games. Wouldn't surprise me at all if it goes full seven. And then you never know. You just get into a game seven, and maybe the Celtics can pull it out. They can hold on. I think they're probably a titch deeper, their bench. It's really just coming down to who do you think is the better two right now? Is it Luca and Kyrie, or is it Jason and Jalen? And that's really what it comes down to. Who are the top two there, and how they're going to perform? Really looking forward to the series. Should be super entertaining. And so that we will see the next time we chat who the deference conference finals are, and we'll kind of get into a deeper dive as that's taking place, if it's as expected to be the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks. Topic number 2, the Boston Red Sox. What's there to be said about the Boston Red Sox? I've been a Boston Red Sox fan my entire life. It dates back to my childhood. They were my favorite team growing up. You have to think about this was the 70s, the 80s, early 90s. Just a huge Boston Red Sox fan. I mean, I date back to where I could remember the entire lineup, especially in the 80s, especially leading up, in the early to mid 80s. We have Fred Lynn in center field, Jim Rice in left field. My favorite player, Dwight Evans, played right field, wore number 24. He was my guy. He also was the one that motivated me to really make my number when I played baseball as a kid as well and in high school, to wear number 24. So I adore the Boston Red Sox, because I had to put up with them, right? I have such a vivid memory. I'm back here visiting my brother and sister this week, dealing with some family stuff that we went through late last year, and we were reminiscing about how sitting in our house, the house that we moved to when my sister and I were in high school, and my brother was a lot younger than us. He's 9 years younger, so he was little. But I clearly, vividly remember sitting into this new house that we had purchased, and they were getting ready to redo it. Watching the Boston Red Sox versus the New York Mets, 1986 World Series. Bill Buckner loses the ball underneath his legs, and the rest is history. Looking back on it, not his fault. The guy still would have made it home. Go ahead, debate me, but it's a fact. They wouldn't have. They still would have lost that game. Breaking your hearts, and then we see what they did. Later on and over the last decade or so in the early 2000s, finally winning the World Series, becoming a fairly dominant team. But now I'm step back and I kind of really wonder, what are the Red Sox really now at this point? Clearly, they've gotten away from the spending. They're not necessarily into taking on larger contracts. Even when I look at kind of their lineup, I watch them now from afar. In full disclosure, and this is just a baseball in general for me. Baseball has become kind of just a lesser priority, I guess. I think baseball overall has done some great things over the last couple of years, like the pitch clock rather, has been fantastic to speed up the game. They're trying to innovate, but I think ratings are definitely way down with baseball. Baseball is still a pretty tough watch. I think the biggest highlight for people right now, and this is what I'm wondering with the Red Sox as well being around here, is are you really going to sit outside? Number one is great. There's nothing beats a ball game on a warm summer night, having a beer, having a hot dog, whether you're really watching the game or just socializing with the people you're with, or taking your kids there. I have such great memories of taking my kids to Coors Field where the Colorado Rockies play, and just watching it, and beautiful sunsets, and the weather's beautiful. Perfect weather to watch baseball in an evening out there in Colorado. In Boston, you have a legendary park in Fenway, right? I mean, Fenway now is, I believe it's the second oldest park. I think the Cubs is still number one, and then Fenway's two. And I vividly remember years ago them talking about, hey, we're we're going to give up on Fenway and we're going to build a ballpark over near where like the Seaport District in Boston is, in the old kind of what I when I grew up as a kid, it was just known as the South Boston, and was not a very nice area. It was just kind of old wharfs and everything else, not much else there. But now it's totally built up and great. They were going to build the new Fenway Park over there, and then that shot down, and they sunk some money into Fenway. Fenway is such a quirky ballpark. It's last summer when we were out here visiting family again. It was we stayed right next to Fenway, and then we walked around it, and just to see the footprint of it, it's a small ballpark. You forget when you've been, especially where I've been away for so long and haven't really necessarily spent a lot of time watching or going to games in Boston anymore. I think just the sheer size of it, it's small, right? It's quirky. The seats aren't great. If you're being honest, Boston fans, you got to admit those ballpark seats. You're sitting in down, say, like the third base line, and you're not angled towards the pitcher and catcher like you are in the new ballparks, right? Where like Coors Field, for example, there isn't a bad seat in the house. They're all comfortable. They're wide, plenty of leg room. Everything's angled to see kind of the pitcher, catcher, batter, right? Really, really great sight lines is what they would say. And Boston, that ain't it. You still got obstructed views with a pole in front of you. You've got like seats that are facing out towards the outfield, so you're constantly twisting your body inwards to see the pitcher, catcher, batter. But it's a great ballpark. I mean, it's there's such history there. The wall, super famous, great. They put seats up on top of the wall. I mean, when I was a kid, that was just netting up there. They've added seats all the way up and down the first and third base rooftop lines. Created a real experience there. I think it's just more of an event. Yawkey Way, when I was a kid, that was never blocked off. You could just kind of walk up and down it, and cars would park there, etc. Now it's all blocked off. Almost not like a carnival is not the right analogy for it, but it's similar to that. They've got vendors out there. They've got little entertainment going on out there. And so Fenway's just a wonderful destination ballpark, which leads me back in a long-winded way of saying, are the Red Sox and the ownership knows this? Are they really just milking it right now for the fans? I would challenge the Red Sox owners to refocus in on and make the Red Sox, kind of in my eyes. I mean, I think over the last 2 years, the Patriots dominated it out here, but I mean, the Red Sox were far and away. This was a Boston Red Sox town, followed by the Celtics, followed by, well, I guess Celtics Bruins are tied, and the fourth option was always the Patriots. When I was a kid, they stunk. So you've really got to look at what is the attraction to the Red Sox? Is it really the ballpark right now? Are the owners just milking it? And saying, look, we're not going to spend a lot of money. We're going to be semi-competitive. I mean, right now, I'm looking at a statistic. The Athletic has them ranked tied for 14th. Their record 27-27. This was as of yesterday. Their power ranking 16, which puts them right in the middle of kind of all of baseball. I think a super interesting stat here, right, is that their pitching started off really, really strong. Where they were averaging 5.2 wins, what they're saying above average for all pitchers. This was first in the MLB. But they also started with a 2.62 ERA to start the season in April, right? But that wouldn't last, right? And the bad news is it actually didn't last, right? Is that they are decent still, I think, at pitching. That's definitely their strong suit. They're still pretty good at it. Where is really letting them down, I think, is this statistic when I read through it. Where it is that the hitters are dead last in fan graphics clutch metrics. So meaning when you really need a hit, where are they? They're coming in dead last. So they just don't have the hitters. They don't have what they used to have in the star power. They're in a tough, you've got teams like the Yankees clearly in front of them. I mean, you look at even the top right now. If you were to look at the top, let's look at the top 5 teams in baseball. The Phillies, this is by the Athletic again. The Phillies, Yankees, Dodgers, Orioles, Cleveland, Atlanta rounds out the top 5. I mean, the Red Sox aren't anywhere close to that right now. And you do wonder what the priorities are as the ownership group that owns the Red Sox. They also own a bunch of different sports. I believe they still own the Pittsburgh Penguins as well in hockey, but they own Liverpool in Premier League in football. So and they're just a conglomerate really when you think about the Fenway Group. They at one point owned, and they probably, I think they still do own parts of a NASCAR slash race car team. So they own a lot of different things. And I just always wonder, are they milking it because they know the fans are going to come out to sit in Fenway because of the nostalgia of it, because you've got loyal fans here. Is this fan base, I think for years was used to getting their hearts broken by the Red Sox, and are we just okay there, and are they really looking for a profit at this point? We'll see what happens. I hope to see that the ownership group really invests and makes this kind of the number one spotlight team here, and tries to bring back baseball. Like I said earlier, is really suffering from a viewership, even participation rate. I think younger kids now today would choose more like lacrosse. I was talking to my nephew last night, and he's one. He converted, loved baseball, and he just converted to lacrosse. Why? It's more action packed, and his friends are all playing it. So you're seeing really this downflux in the U.S. of American kids playing baseball, which is why you have such a Latin slash even Japanese influence, like a guy like Shohei Ohtani, what he's been able to do to bring to the game. Well, interesting to see what the Red Sox do over the next couple years here. And our next topic will be about the New England Patriots. All right, the New England Patriots, as I segue into this, let's talk about them. The New England Patriots have been dominant, had a dynasty under Tom Brady. He moved on. Tampa Bay, he clearly won that argument, by the way. If we want to really step back, is it the quarterback or is it the coach? My opinion, it's always about the quarterback. What do you know? Bill Belichick lost before Tom Brady. He wins with Tom Brady, and then once Tom Brady goes to Tampa, Bill Belichick loses yet again. So that's in the past. Let's talk about him now. ESPN. I looked at their power rankings. Let's see. This article was dated back in May 13th, so a couple weeks ago. And they have, as a power ranking, the New England Patriots right now ranked 30th out of 32 teams. Not great. Not great. Post free agency ranking, after they got through free agency, they were actually at 31, so they actually moved up a spot, and that's to account for the drafting of Drake May as their quarterback. I'd say this about the Patriots. I mean, being 30th out of 32, the only other two teams behind them is ouch. My Denver Broncos are number 31, and the Carolina Panthers are just cemented at that 32 spot right now. The Patriots rather. What can you say about them? They do exactly what, in my opinion, you shouldn't have done. You did make the decision to move on from Bill Belichick, but what do? You go and sign Jared Mayo, a defensive guy, to lead the team here. And Jared Mayo, I mean, nothing against him. Bright guy, I'm sure. Great guy. We're in an offensive league. What are you thinking, New England, right? Look at all the great teams right now. Like, I just off the top of my head, when I think about the teams out there that you're trying to compete with and you're trying to go for, right? Number one, you got to get the quarterback right. And two, if you're going to get the quarterback right and develop him, you got to get an offensive minded guy around him, right? So, not a great hire, in my opinion. Jared Mayo, defensive guy. Great teams that are surrounded by great, an offensive minded guy, right? Kansas City, right? Andy Reid, phenomenal. San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, phenomenal. Sean McVay, LA Rams, phenomenal. The guy out in Detroit, Dan out there, phenomenal, offensive-minded guy. And you look at the defensive, head coaches that are kind of sort of struggling. Robert Saleh, great defensive coordinator, struggling with the Jets. We'll see what he's doing. I would argue the Buffalo Bills, right? Their head coach, he's a defensive-minded guy. Josh Allen, what's up? Got all the talent in the world. Can't bring it home. Can't get past it, right? This is the Bills' year if they're going to win the AFC East, which they clearly will. But they're not one of these teams. They should be going further, in my opinion. They should absolutely be going head to head with Kansas City, and they should actually be able to beat them. But they don't got the offensive coach. And so, what does New England do? They hire the guy in house who is here. He's a defensive guy. He's going to look about his side of the ball, hand over the offense to an offensive coordinator. They draft Drake May, and if I'm Drake May, I'm thinking, great. I have a strike against me already. I'm already placed in here with a defensive minded coach and a first year coach to boot. We'll see what Drake May does. I mean, I think he's got a lot of upside. People are hit or miss. No one really knows. You could say he's going to be a bust. You could say he's going to be fantastic. Nobody truly, truly knows. I will say this. This is how kind of Mike Reese, a great reporter, used to work for, I believe, the Boston Globe, now works for ESPN. He said this, signing veteran Jacoby Brissett rather, is basically a placeholder, right, to get Drake May ready to take over, right? They're definitely much more positioned than they were with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. I mean, those two off to the side now. What he says here, when they finished tied for last in points scored per game, again, defensive-minded coach, and then they had a weird offensive coordinator that actually was a defensive guy. Again, weird, but that was, I think, Belichick at the end. So they pick up Joe Milton, the third out of Tennessee with the sixth round pick. He'll round out the QB depth chart along with Zappi, and then you've also got Drake May. Fully expect Drake May. I mean, one other concerning point, and I don't mean to bang on Jared Mayo here for the New England Patriots fans out here, but really, you're going to make a collective decision on the quarterback? You're going to sit down and collectively think about it and come to a consensus in a kumbaya moment? Dude, you're the head coach. You got to make the call. It's so concerning to me where this is headed. Other people disagree, think that they'll be great. They're going to be great with a defensive minded coach. That's how New England won in the past. That's how they became the dynasty. All I'm saying is you also had the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. We'll see. All right, topic number 4. Let's talk about Scituate, Massachusetts. Scituate, Massachusetts, small town, predominantly a summer town when you think about it. It's about 25 miles south of Boston. It's along the water. Its history is big time fishing, kind of commercial fishermen are here. A lot of people have sailboats or motorboats. Beautiful harbor area. It's protected by these two huge jetties. As I'm recording this, I'm actually looking out at the harbor right now. Just, a quintessential New England type town, right? That's my best way of describing it. And you've got obviously a working class town with the commercial fishermen, and then you've got people that kind of come down here on vacation. Population in, say, off season, which would, let's call that fall, winter, spring, is like 16, 17,000. And then that doubles in the summertime to 36,000. There's beaches in town. You've got at least, you've got Peggotty Beach, Minot Beach, Sand Hills. You've got over in Fourth Cliff, there's numerous cliffs that are in town. You've got First, Second, Third, and Fourth. Fourth is called Humrock, which is like an annex of Scituate. It's part of Scituate, but not really. You got to get through another town. It's kind of weird. But they have a huge beach over there. So you've got Humrock, which makes up Scituate as well. It's got one of the pretty New England style lighthouses out here. They've actually just finished redoing it. It's out near that jetty I was talking about. A white lighthouse. It has now a copper dome on top of it, and it's not officially. Not many of the lighthouses are actually still technically like operating and officially like lighthouses, just with the advent of GPS, as you can imagine, over the years. But they've just redone that. Super pretty. Makes like a little very distinctive approach to the harbor here, and then there's another beautiful lighthouse that's out in the water along very rocky shoreland, and that one's called Minot Light, which is over the Minot section of Scituate. It's off the coast, and it's kind of really sandwiched towards to the town to the north of us called Cohasset. Scituate, I grew up here, moved here when I was about 3.5, 4 years old from Rhode Island. Grew up here, spent my first, really. I went to college down in Rhode Island, came back, lived here for a few years, and then got married, moved down to Duxbury, which is along the South Shore, but then left Massachusetts when I was 30, and I've been out in Colorado for the past 20, 24 years now. Scituate, great to come back and visit. My siblings both live here. It's one of those communities where people tend to like live, which you see, kind of typical back here. They live, they're born, raised, live. Their families end up living here. So you've got people that lived in town that are the quote unquote townies that have been here forever, and that's no different here. Things that are interesting to see here. I've talked about the beaches. It's really nice in the summertime. I'm staying at the Inn at Scituate Harbor. This has been around since I was a kid. It's had a couple different names, but now it's known as the Inn at Scituate Harbor. Never stayed here until this trip. Beautiful little inn. Every room has a view of the harbor, which is kind of their iconic symbol. As I look out here, it's just really a beautiful night. As it rained most of the day, now the sun's coming out, and it's really clearing up to be a nice night. But you're right, set down here near their harbor area. So the harbor has like a little district, and that's where most of the restaurants and little shops and a couple bars and bistros, and as they call them out here, packies, which are liquor stores. The package stores are here too. Quaint little downtown area the harbor is. Some of the favorite things that I've enjoyed here while I've been back that I always kind of hit that have evolved over the years. A lot of the things, as you can imagine, some of them are still around when I was a kid, but a lot of them have kind of transformed. There's a great coffee shop called Lucky Finn. Um, Make their own coffee beans. So they roast their own coffee beans here. It's called Lucky Finn. They've got two locations here in town, and another location in the next town over, called Hanover from here. Great place, great coffees, great breakfast items. They even serve lunch items like salads, lobster rolls, stuff like that. You've got you've got a breakfast place called Sam's. That's pretty good. That's in the harbor area. Couple restaurants that are pretty good. Salt Society is really good. The Galley, really good. Think small plates. Sometimes they have entertainment, music, etc. Breakfast as well, brunch. And then they've had a restaurant here that's been here since for a while. Not when I was a kid. It used to be just a fish shack when I was a kid, and I can't remember the name of it, but now it's called the Scituate. And the Scituate is the guy who owns it used to own a restaurant across the street from it called Pier 44. He actually owns a restaurant out the Bridgeway over in Humrock that I was talking about. So he's been ingrained in this community forever, literally forever, 50 plus years. And he had a restaurant, Pier 44, that is across the street. But the Scituate now has been there for a while. Classic New England fare, I would say. Obviously you've got fish and chips, but then you've got like shrimp scampi, chicken parmesan, a little bit like seafood meets Italian is the best way to think about it. But that's kind of like the food that you'll get out here, kind of in the suburbs of Massachusetts, is kind of like that shrimp scampi, the fettuccine alfredos, the chicken parm, fish and chips, fish sandwiches, stuff like that. They're all similar menus. But what Scituate does really, really well is they have bar style pizza. And for those that haven't had a bar style pizza, it's their individual size pizzas. Everybody picks out your own. You get like 8 little slices. It's great. And out here, it's kind of a thing. You'll hear South Shore bar style pizza. There's actually a Facebook group you can join called South Shore Bar Pizza. Hard to describe, I'd say. It's not a New York pizza. They're smaller, like I said, individual size, a little bit thicker. Not as thick as we talked about the Chicago style, obviously, but it's a decent amount. Kind of like a Greek style pizza, but they're always kind of like cooked well done. Individual. It's like I can't even describe the way it is because it's totally different than in New York. It's not Detroit. It's not Chicago. A bar style is like a thing of its own, right? It's really what you'd think about if you went into a bar and you were sitting there and they served you a pizza in front of you. You can easily crush the entire pizza, and they're all great, and they do a wonderful job. Which the standard here is set fairly high, right? You've got like institutions like the Town Spa in Scituate, Massachusetts, which they crank out thousands of pizza on a daily basis. I mean, they're known. You can go on the Dave Portnoy's Barstool. One bite, everybody knows the rules. It was his first pizza review he ever did and give it a 10 before he got super into this thing. But it is a great pizza. But they do a really good job, and I would argue it's actually better than the Town Spa. So you got the Scituate, kind of a little institution. You'll see all the locals there. Um, Quaint little town. Super isolated. I think you get people that come here that want to get away from the city and they just want to, be involved in a small town. My siblings both live here. They both love it. And I don't think either of them has any intentions of leaving. So that's a little bit about Scituate. That's a little bit about my special episode here of the Sports File 35-year reboot. I figured I would do it where this all originated from way back when I was in high school back in 88, 89. And this is my homage to Boston sports and Massachusetts in general. Wherever you listen to your podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll talk to you next week.